So as you began to walk through that period, what an instructive lesson for people as we think, what if you knew that you only had 10 days to live? How would you live your life?
Absolutely. And because it was such a gift, because no days are promised.
Yeah.
But for some reason, God gave me a picture for 10 days. So I was given 10 days. So I used those 10 days to seek God's face through prayer, through scripture.
And were you afraid at any point during this, as you received the diagnosis and started to walk through what you thought were your final days on earth?
You know, I wasn't. In fact, when I wrote this book, I was shocked that I never addressed fear. I brushed against it at one point, but I never addressed it because, one, I didn't have time. 10 days, you don't have time to be afraid. You have things to do. But fear is so fleeting, and it's not the core issue. Was it my trust, my lack of trust, my lack of faith that caused the fear? Why don't I just go to the source of the issue and not just the fear itself?
So, Robin, at what point did you start to recognize that even though the medical professionals had given you 10 days, you really were beginning to sense that God wasn't quite finished with you yet? At what point did you come to that conclusion?
Honestly, when I woke up after surgery, because on day 9, I had come up to the point where I was okay with I trusted God so completely that if my passing was to benefit my ministry, my children, in the long term, of course, not short term, but to impress on others, to build up the kingdom more, then I was okay with that. I could deal with that and I could accept that willingly. I wasn't volunteering,
Yeah.
but I was okay with it.
Yeah. So as you walked through this time, what did you begin to think about with respect to just facing death? Because you have, I think it's a very healthy thing for us as believers to recognize that, to, of course, number one, know where we're going
Right.
when we die, but also to recognize that our time on earth is temporary. We're not promised
We are not
tomorrow.
promised.
So what did you learn and write about with respect to the topic of death?
Well, we all have a purpose, and that purpose is destined. It doesn't change, and when we make mistakes in our lives, we think we've destroyed everything that God has ever wanted to give us. But to think like that makes us bigger than God, because His plans are perfect from the beginning. Now, we might have to take a detour. We might have to work differently than what we anticipated, but our purpose is still our purpose.
Robin Luftig joining me today here at the Christian Product Expo, the CPE show in Wilmington, Delaware. This is the Meeting House on Faith Radio. Well, Robin, in the book, God's Best During Your Worst, you talked about your morning prayers and how you really came before the Lord at the beginning of your 10 days and began
Yes.
to follow through with that. Tell me about your time with the Lord during that season as you thought that your time on earth was drawing to a close.
I had hours. You know, I could count the number of hours that I had been given by the doctors to work with this. So I didn't have time to light pedal it. And I was very transparent with God. I was very harsh, maybe some people might think, because I said, "Are you there? Do you care? Do you even see me? What's going on? Do you love me?" I asked those hard questions that we all really, I think, want to know, but sometimes are afraid to ask. I didn't have time to be afraid.